Hello, 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 good people, and welcome to Happy, Healthy, Whole with Sharea. Today, I am talking about embracing change and the importance as we get towards the end of the year. So, I'm going to do probably about 6 weeks worth of just getting ready for the new year, embracing the level of change, and then also incorporating a few different things around that end of the year reality check that we got to get ourselves ready. We have to be prepared. And for our mental health specifically, how important it is to plan to take care of ourselves in advance and or have coping strategies to really take care of ourselves in those moments when sometimes we just don't have it. So today we're going to just start with, and this is just to start the series, just to let you know, is we're going to start with really embracing change. And the main thing that I want you to remember in all of my points that I'll make today is really that change is inevitable. And really, as we are living through life and just kind of navigating life, we have to be able to handle transitions. And especially as we get to this end of the year where holidays and the nature of this time in the season, as well as being in a political uh, season in terms of in the US, really trying to look at preparing ourselves to take care of ourselves. So what I want us to think about when we think about how change is inevitable is that constant nature of change. It basically is this part of life that whether we like it or not, it happens. We have transitions such as end of the year, new jobs, new children, new families, new marriages. We have all these different things that are considered changes. But we have to understand that the nature of change is just that it's going to happen, that a season or a time is going to shift. And sometimes it's based off of the calendar, and sometimes it's based off of our personal and individual experiences. But naturally, we need to reflect on the past and prepare for the future. And so the real point around embracing change is really just that, to kind of reflect and prepare. The time often brings up especially at the end of the year, this kind of thing of like, I need to get my goals together. I got to do all these things. But sometimes the first thing I encourage us to do is to reflect and to really think about the areas of change that we want in our lives related to goals, routines that we are doing well at, routines that we could do better at, or we're having challenges in, and to kind of really highlight the constant reality that we will need to grow and change. And the nature of that change is inevitable, but we can do some level of reflection and preparation. The other thing is to look at this next couple of months as opportunity for reflection and growth. The end of the year really kind of serves for many of us this kind of anxiety point of what I didn't do or what I did do right or what I'm need to get finished. But really, I think it's a good opportunity to do self-reflection. Sometimes when we can't do that self-reflection, we can incorporate other people's evaluations of what we've been able to accomplish or acknowledgement of what we've been able to do over this year. So I really think we start with really the self-reflection part around our accomplishments, our challenges, and the things that we want to kind of change as the new year kind of comes into our reality that it's coming no matter what. And then this period of reflection should also include an acknowledgement of some things are going to be out of your control, just as they were in 2024 or they were in the 2023 or 2022, whatever year that we are in. Some things are going to be out of our control, but I have to encourage us to see these things sometimes as opportunities for personal growth, for learning from our mistakes, from encouraging other people in our lives to do better or to want better for ourselves, and to kind of really embrace this new possibility that even though there's change and even though I'm setting some intentions for the new year, that this is a opportunity versus a challenge, more or less. And that really becomes part of that end of the year reflection and closing. The next thing I want us to think about when we think about change being inevitable is that really we have to navigate it regardless. We have to be able to navigate transitions of all types, whether we like to or not. And the reality is that many of us would want to get stuck, would want to just not have to fight it and not have to do things and not have to get ready. But understanding that change is inevitable allows us as individuals to approach life transitions with intentional expectation of good, intentional expectation of what we want from this next transition in our life, rather than resisting change, I think we embrace it. I think we embrace it in a way that leads us to maybe a smoother transition, not saying that it's not is going to be perfect or that this positive outlook is going to change some of the obstacles that might come along. But what it allows you to do is it accepts the really ebbs and flows of that life change as a part of this opportunity of growth. And really, when we think about it that way, we get the opportunity to kind of help our mental health and our emotional health look at it as a new opportunity, a new beginning, and a new thing that lies ahead of us versus this large challenge that can really be, stressful or hurtful to us. So, what I want to think about in this particular area when it comes to embracing change is three things. Three things that we're going to talk about really quickly is understanding the impact or psychological impact of change. Some coping strategies, because it wouldn't be me if I didn't give you some tips to kind of take care of yourself as you're embracing this change. And then lastly, understanding that being flexible is an important part of dealing and embracing change. So when I think about understanding the psychological impact of change, it is just that the stress and the anxiety that comes from change is real. Change often triggers both of those things, stress and anxiety. Even when change is good or positive in a sense, the reality is that it's still uncertainty, and it's still like this unfamiliar thing that you haven't done yet or haven't gotten into yet. And so the brain perceives change as this potential threat. And for us, we have to be really willing to lead or heighten our ability to see that this stress is normal and to normalize the reality that you can have stress and even anxiety and adjust to new circumstances. So, really understanding that stress and anxiety is a normal response to change. It's just that simple. The next thing is thinking about it from the perspective of a psychological adaptation and resilience. What have I done in the past that has helped me to deal with change? What has helped me to be stronger, in a sense, resilient to get through some things? So over time, as individuals, we typically develop some form of resilience and adaptation to change. And what this means is we have our way of kind of processing it both emotionally, cognitively, and kind of knowing what we need to do to adjust. So really learning what that is for yourself. Like for each of us, it's a different speed. For each of us, it's different related to how negative or positive the change is. For each of us, for each of us, we have to do it differently, but we have to do it. And so really thinking about how can I adapt and be resilient as I embrace this change. And I encourage you to think about in this one, looking at who could be your support systems, who could be that self-reflection that we talked about earlier, sort of helping you to evaluate what you see or what you're going through, finding those different ways to adapt and be resilient is also a helpful way to embrace change. And then last, when I think about understanding the psychological impact, I think about identifying your self-concept. Really, a significant part of change is that it hurts or makes us feel that we're losing our identity, that there's this shift in our identity around this change. So if I use the example of career or getting into a new relationship or even having a health scare, what happens is that many of us can have this sense of identity and self-concept crisis that says that I'm not sure who I am in this moment. I can't find the job. I can't get into these relationships or keep these relationships. And so what happens then is that people may struggle. And this is really where we have to be honest with ourselves around what this struggle means. And when we struggle, being okay with saying, I'm a little confused. I'm a little frustrated with myself, but this is an opportunity to redefine, to reestablish, or to acknowledge and to really develop my personal identity and values and just grow in this moment. And that's going to be why it's so important to be flexible when even we're looking at our self identity, because if we are truthful, we are not the same person we were just 5 years ago. We're different in ways that may be good and sometimes ways that are maybe not so good. And really being able to be okay with that and accept that is a part of personal growth. So that's understanding psychological impact, just in terms of some ways to think about it, from anxiety, resilience, and just your self identity and how it is impacted by change. The next thing we think about is, what are some coping strategies that you can use? And so I talked about stress, resilience, but sometimes we don't know what to do. And the reality is, when we're embracing change, one of my favorite tools, and you'll hear me talk about this a lot of times, and you've heard me talk about this specifically over a few months ago around mindfulness and using mindfulness. But mindfulness and relaxation tips can be one of the most helpful coping strategies when managing our life transitions. It's just the truth. Practicing mindfulness, such as deep breathing or meditation, can help calm your mind and reduce the psychological symptoms of anxiety and stress. When we think about these techniques, a lot of times it's hard for us to say, stay present. But the reality is that when we stay present, what this does for us is it helps us to prevent being overwhelmed with the thoughts of the future and the things that seem to be out of our control, and give us a sense of stillness and calmness that can allow us to endure or to deal and navigate with the transition. So my first tip for strategy is really learning how to cope and deal with change through mindfulness and relaxation tips. And I'll put a video in here, if you're listening to this on our podcast platform, you can always jump over to our YouTube as well to get the actual videos, and or listen back to some of our previous ones, because I do believe that I've uploaded them here as well. The next thing is structure, routine, and planning. When we think about coping strategies for transition, it helps us to know what's going to happen next, or to have some idea of what we would like to happen next. So establish a structure routine, or create a step-by-step plan for navigating the change and reducing uncertainty in your as much as possible, right? So breaking down the transition into manageable tasks that can help you to deal with it. I'm thinking things like, I want to date, or I want to be in a relationship. Sorry about that. I had a doorbell ring. So anyway, so just thinking about structure and planning. When we think about structure and planning, we really are thinking about like the step-by-step plan. And I kind of talked about it a little bit, but thinking really this allows us to make this daunting idea of the transition or the change more manageable, and really manageable in a way that helps us to alleviate some of that stress that we talked about earlier, because it helps us to focus on what can we get done, what can work. And so when we think about, say, relationships, or we think about jobs or getting a new job, we might be able to say, I'm going to put in 5 applications for a new position. Or if I'm going into a new role, I'm going to be trained over the next 3 months. And then usually someone gives you an onboarding kind of a schedule or plan that will help you to kind of get that level of stress reduction, that says that I can get this, I can learn this. And although it may seem overwhelming, what this step-by-step part kind of does for you is it puts things back into your control, and allows you to think that it's less daunting, and allows you to have more helpful focus on how to manage the stress around transitions and change, because they're happening either way, right? And then the last thing is something that you'll hear me mention a lot, because I will believe in collective care, just similar to self-care as it being very important, is to think about your social support and communication. Enhancing your social support, especially your friends and families, or therapists, can provide emotional support during a time of change, but it can also create comfort and practical advice that allows you to see the change as real, as to see the change as not all negative, and to help you to share your concerns and feelings always allows you to say, kind of do the self-reflection and gain knowledge and growth that alleviates the burden of the stress or the anxiety that comes naturally um, with uh, with anxiety, excuse me, with transition or change anyway. And so thinking from this perspective is that when we have a social support that we can talk with and communicate with, it fosters a sense of connection, but oftentimes it offers us new perspectives on how we can really manage this transition, whether we like to or not. And so really when we think about it, those are our 3 things that I really want you to kind of think about when embracing change. It is to your mindfulness activities, we got to do them. Creating and routine and structure and planning helps. And then having that awesome support group that will allow you to be your best self. And then when we think about my last point, which was really about enhancing the importance of, or excuse me, emphasizing the importance of flexibility and adaptability. You got to be adaptable during change. Part of facing and embracing change is realizing that resilience is built in flexibility and adaptation, or being able to adapt to the things that are around us. And it's crucial for us to do this because what it does is it allows the individual to kind of navigate the uncertainties of life with that resilience we talked about earlier. Being able to open yourself up to new experiences and having a willingness to adjust and kind of navigate the changes of all these opportunities and challenges that might come your way allows for the individual to just naturally reduce stress because they're seizing the moment. They're seizing the opportunity for growth, and they're seeing it as this could help me to learn. This could help me to develop versus seeing it as this is destroying me and this is hurting me. So making that challenge into this awesome opportunity, or even changing that, allows for us to be flexible, but also allows for us to be more supportive of ourselves mentally. And because here is going to be really the mindset, meaning our mind is going to be really how we foster long-term success with any forms of our transitions. And so when we think about being able to be flexible and adapt, we really are looking at having long-term success when we have multiple transitions or different things that will impact us throughout our life. And that just is the truth, whether we like it or not. And so, really, just to think about this to close, I want us to think about it from two different things: embracing change as a catalyst for growth, which means embracing change helps us to be empowered. Individuals can step into or look at life from this perspective as a comfort zone that I am creating that is new for me, right? Because when we're in our comfort zone, we're all good. Now we're creating a new comfort zone. We're fostering new personal growth, and we're developing a sense of, I always want to deal with transitions as an opportunity of growth. So when we welcome new experiences and challenges, this helps us discover how strong we really are, while at the same time, it helps us to develop a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world we live in. And then, really, when we do this, we are building resilience and having a fulfilled life. Life is going to keep lifing, and embracing change is going to have to be a part of that. So think of it from just that perspective. When you build resilience and you learn to adapt and you're flexible, essentially what this becomes is a trait that you're able to navigate life's uncertainties in a way that allows you to grow from them versus to be harmed from them. This openness allows us to change in ways that we don't even believe we can sometimes. It allows us to be our best self, and it allows us to have success in life areas that we sometimes may have not witnessed or seen as we were growing up. And so I hope that you saw this as an opportunity and a beginning as of the end of the season, going into our last part of the season, and meaning the year, as looking at it is time to embrace change and prepare for a new and exciting experience that comes as the new year starts, and we embrace it as a part of our change. All right, y'all, you take good care of yourselves. I will see you in a week. Be well.